This is KUGAN CASSIUS for IFL TV in association with MTK Global. Delighted to be joined once again by Mr. Bob ARUM. How are you, Bob?
Good, good. I'm back in the city where I came from.
Absolutely. It's freezing cold weather here, but you're kind of used to all different kinds of climate, travelling as much as you do.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's going to get a lot colder in New York as the winter goes on than it is now. I think it's sort of quite pleasant.
Let's talk about this Saturday night. You've got a triple header going on, obviously headlined, all three could headline, but Terence Crawford against Mean Machine. Mandatory defence for Terence Crawford. He has to fight him, so talk to him about this fight.
Well, Mean Machine is done his professional fights under Top Rank, and he's a very dedicated Eastern European fighter. He's quite good. Is he in the same class as Terence Crawford? One would have to doubt it. But he's an Eastern European guy, and when they sense an opportunity, they dig down, and I think he's going to make a great fight of it.
Terence obviously will be repeatedly asked questions about these fights that we haven't seen yet. He's obviously accomplished so much in his career. He's been undisputed in his career, which the majority of fighters out there can't say that they've done that. But at welterweight, obviously, there's the fight that everyone keeps crying out for is the Errol Spence fight. Do you think that will happen next year? Obviously, we know Errol's been in a situation recently, but
I don't think it'll happen next year. I don't think it'll happen the year after. And it's not because promoters don't want it to happen, because I have grave doubts whether Errol Spence will be back in the ring in the foreseeable future. Unfortunately, as that may be, and I have received some inside intelligence that allows me to say that. So, I mean, let's pass on Errol Spence, because until we see him face to face, until he appears in public, until we can establish that he's ready to go back into the ring, it's unfortunate, but let's not talk about him. He's a lovely young man. That was a horrible accident that he had, and just leave it at that.
okay. So you're not going to let me kind of expand on where you may have heard this information from, Bob?
No, I don't think that would be inappropriate, but it is good information. It is unfortunately, very good information.
We heard Terence Crawford talk to Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith the other day, and Teddy Atlas, talking about Manny Pacquiao, actually, and said that Pacquiao ran from him and didn't want that fight. You did have both fighters under your control at one point.
You know, ran from him is the wrong description. The fight was offered on a couple of occasions. I offered it to Manny Pacquiao, and they didn't want to fight Terence Crawford, and I can't blame them. Pacquiao, you know, was a great warrior, and he had fabulous fights with Juan Manuel Marquez and Timothy Bradley. But at this stage in his career, or the latter stages when he was with Top Rank, I don't think he would have been particularly competitive with Terence Crawford. And every time I raised the issue of fighting Terence Crawford, they told me no.
If we're to take guys like Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence out of the equation, what are the super fights for Terence at that weight?
Well, I think and the welterweight, let's look at welterweights. Yeah. I think over at PBC, they have one guy who would make, I think, a fascinating fight with Terence, and that's Sean Porter. Porter is a terrific fighter. He lost, but very closely, to Errol Spence. That was a very good fight, and it could have gone either way. So certainly Porter. And then there's really nothing, unless we look at these fabulous junior welterweights who are going to go up to welterweight, like Jose Ramirez, who fights for us and will be fighting in China on February 2nd. against Victor Postal. He wants to go up to 147, and he would be amenable to fighting Crawford. Then there's Regis Progress, who's a terrific junior welterweight who wants to fight welterweight now and has had conversations with us. And then there's the one man that we haven't had conversations with, who may be either the best or the co-best junior welterweight. That's your guy, Josh Taylor, who's a terrific fighter. And I know that, or I feel that he would be interested eventually in going up to welterweight and testing Crawford. I think those are the big super fights for Terrence.
Interesting you mentioned Josh Taylor, obviously, who beat Regis Prograis in the final. So if he's going to go up to 147, that would be very interesting.
He's a terrific fighter, and as you know, he's very big for 140 pounds. He, could reach 147 easily and might like that.
Let's move on to Teofimo Lopez, who challenges for his first world title against Richard Commey this weekend. This is a very fascinating fight and a real pick'em fight. A lot of people can't really see which way this is going to go.
That is correct. I mean, it's interesting for you and I to talk about a pick'em fight, but the guys who really determine that are the bookmakers, and the bookmakers have made it a pick'em fight. So there is betting on both sides. I think I like Teofimo to win the fight, but I would not be surprised if Commey came through and defended his title. Teofimo has had a marvelous training camp, which can't be said about some of his previous training camp. So he's locked and ready for the fight. Whether that's enough to beat Commey with Comey's strength and experience, that remains to be seen.
How good is Lopez in your opinion?
I think he could very well be a superstar. Could very well. He's shown sort of traces of superstardom in his career. It hasn't been consistent, but I think that now that he seems to have sorted through a lot of his personal problems, I think the sky's the limit for him. I mean, I'm an optimist, and I've seen with my own eyes some brilliance from him. It hasn't been consistent, but more often than not, it's been brilliant performances. And so I'm very high on him.
Let's move on to the much anticipated fight between Michael Conlan and Vladimir Nikitin. The fight was obviously meant to take place in Belfast back in August. We didn't probably assume that it would take place so soon after that fight fell through. But this fight has a lot of history, and Michael Conlan will want to kind of erase the memory of what happened in the Olympics by putting it right on Saturday, Bob.
Yeah, when Michael signed with us a number of years ago, that's the first thing he said to us. He wants us to make that fight. And so we reached out to a good friend of ours who's the manager of Lomachenko, Igor Klimas, and we said, please sign this guy and let's get him ready to fight Conlan. And I learned for the first time this week at the press conference that they have a history together, that it wasn't just that one last fight at the Olympics, that Nikitin has a victory over him even before that.
Yeah.
So it remains to be seen. Nikitin doesn't have a lot of professional experience, but like a lot of Eastern Europeans, he has that vast amateur background.
We know, and obviously Michael Conlan won't be looking past this weekend. It's a huge fight, the biggest fight of his professional career so far. But next year, St. Patrick's Day here in New York, I'm assuming there is a plan to obviously put Michael Conlan at the Garden again.
That is correct. That is correct. Can we pause a second?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
picking this back up. Yeah, so Bob, next year, St Patrick's Day, the idea is obviously Michael Conlan to headline one part of the garden.
Right, and we're going to get Paddy Donahue over at, to give his New York debut on St. Paddy's Day. And it's unusual because St. Paddy's Day, I think, falls on a Tuesday, so the fight will be on a Tuesday, yeah.
Will you do a double header with another show either the weekend before?
Yeah, we're going to weekend. We're doing the fifth. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, we have a show scheduled. I guess it's on the 15th, a Saturday, in the garden, at a little garden at the theater, and then we keep our equipment there and everything. Cut down on expenses, and we go right into St. Patrick's Day.
How realistic is it that Michael Conlan in the first 6 to 8 months will fight for a world title next year?
Absolutely, we're going to try to plan that, and our goal is, all things being equal, he comes through in these fights. That definitely going to look for a title fight for him in 2020.
Josh Warrington an option there?
Well, I think right now we're thinking of maybe Shakur Stevenson fighting Warrington, and but again, all this is up in the air, and it's nice planning with all these lovely, great fighters.
Absolutely. We're kind of expecting the announcement, the formal announcement of the rematch between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder to be happening very shortly.
All right, we're going to take that in a second. Let's hold a second because the guys at Pugman.
Bob, we're expecting the formal announcement of Tyson Fury's rematch with Deontay Wilder in the next few days, I'm assuming?
Well, it's going to be like everything else with Tyson Fury and also Deontay. Everything's going to be spectacular. This is not going to be announcements like the normal type announcements. This is going to be really like a circus. I mean, this promotion is going to be, I think, one of the greatest promotions, if not the greatest, in the history of boxing. So a lot of stuff is being planned. When the announcement will be, it'll be special. How it's going to be done, where it's going to be done. I'm not going to reveal it because they'll slit my throat if I do. I have to keep it under wraps. But, with ESPN and Fox, two major networks combining, and, they have they're great idea guys, and they're terrific, the way they promote products. You're going to see something really special. Because we have all of the in the States, football, our football, not yours, is the major sport, and so Fox and ESPN both have significant football games coming up. ESPN has the college playoffs and the national championship. Fox has the NFC, National Football Conference playoffs, and the Super Bowl. So the American public will be seeing a lot of Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder in the weeks ahead.
We are expecting a date of February the 22nd in Las Vegas. Are you saying that it could be something different to what I'm just saying?
No, I think that's pretty good. That's in stone.
MGM Grand?
That's also sort of in stone, but that'll be finalized next week.
Okay. So a formal announcement we can expect next week?
No.
Okay.
Just formal announcement will come in spectacular fashion that will go around the world.
Have you heard Tyson Fury's Christmas single with Robbie Williams? Have you heard it?
No.
Have you not heard it?
No.
Oh, I'm surprised someone hasn't played that to you.
Well, they will. I'm sure I'll hear plenty of it.
Bob, I wanted to get your thoughts on last weekend in Saudi Arabia, where Andy Ruiz lost a unanimous points decision to Anthony Joshua. Your thoughts?
Well, Andy Ruiz didn't surprise me. Once I found out when they announced his weight, I said it's not even worth watching the fight. because Andy, remember, except for the last 2 fights, Andy Ruiz fought his entire professional career with Top Rank. So I'm very familiar with Andy Ruiz. And when he came in around 240, he was a really good fighter. When he came in, as he did often with us, close to 300 pounds, he was a bum, too much weight, no movement, and guys who shouldn't have been in the same ring with him gave him tough fights. So when I saw at the weigh-in the weights for him and saw his stomach, I said to everybody what George Foreman said to everybody: no chance to win. It was just a walkover fight for Joshua. Now that doesn't demean Joshua, because he prepared for the fight the way a professional prepares for a fight. Andy Ruiz was not a professional. He was, trying to imitate Buster Douglas, who knocked out Tyson, and then when he came in his next fight to fight Holyfield, was a different fighter.
We're in a situation now where the WBO have now, I think, formally ordered the fight with Alexander Usyk. There's also the situation regarding the IBF with Kubrat Pulev. How is that going to work itself out?
Well, fortunately, we're dealing with Paco Valcarcel of the WBO and with Darryl Peoples of the IBF, and I trust those gentlemen to sort out the situation. They are sensible people, and the situation will be sorted out. It's up to them, but I think everybody's on the same page.
So is it a situation of which mandatory will take place first?
Yes, yeah, but they'll sort it out.
Are you happy for you to be the latter mandatory?
The what?
The mandatory after?
No, we should be the mandatory first, but that decision will be made by the 2 organizations. Absolutely, we intend and should be the mandatory, the next mandatory. For various reasons, the IBF has been on the board with this, and everybody agreed to it months ago, before this, the Joshua Ruiz fight was sanctioned, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, I believe that the best case, the best argument, is that Pulev is the first mandatory. But again, the organizations will sort that out, and I'm confident that they will do the right thing.
Bob, I just want to finish off by talking about Lomachenko and Ruiz, if you will, please.
Well, there's a lot of weight difference between them.
Well, I meant them separately as.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled that we have signed a contract with Inoue to showcase him in the United States and also in Japan. We hope to have him 3 fights next year. He's a wonderful fighter, and they're wonderful people. I think he's going to make a big success of himself in the States. As far as Lomachenko is Lomachenko. He's an artist. And I think his dream is to win the last title in the lightweight division. That will be the winner of Comey and Lopez. And hopefully we get that fight done in the first part of next year. And then I'll leave it up to Loma to determine who he wants to fight. But, I have, as you know, I have great admiration for Lomachenko. He's something really special. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he's a special performer.
Just finally, Carl Frampton, obviously, after his disappointment, returned in Las Vegas recently with a win. Rumoured to be fighting Herring next year.
Yeah, I mean, I love Carl. I mean, he really graces a boxing ring. He's a tremendous fighter. was a great performance considering that both hands were broken. I mean, an unbelievable performance against McCreary. But we have Jamal Herring is on board. Jamal Herring doesn't mind going to Belfast to defend his title, you know, and we're eagerly awaiting the doctor's report with Carl, and we'll stage that fight accordingly. I mean, I can't predict when that fight will happen because I'm not a doctor. Doctors will give their opinion, and then we'll move on from there. But Herring, in principle, has accepted the fight.
Okay, Bob, listen, thank you very much for your time. Look forward to a great show at Madison Square Garden this Saturday.
Thank you.
Yeah, anything else you'd like to add?
No,
Bob?
I'll see you before the end of the year. I'll be over in the UK, and so I look forward to it. I love the UK, and great fans. I mean, there's no boxing fan any place in the world like the fans in the UK. I mean, amazing how they come out and fill arenas and cheer and have a good time. And so hopefully my fighters will be part of that next year.
Bob, ARUM, thank you very much, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you.
Is special. Absolute dynamite. Oh, my